And you are watching another edition of Blewetts Blitz Live with both Sabo and Nanya, as one of our listeners, John, requested. So we have Nanya here as well. Sabo, we'll throw it to you first. I'm kind of getting sloppy seconds.
Wait a second. Wait a second. I'm not enough to headline. You got to bring Nanya in. What is this nonsense?
If you have a problem with it, blame John, Sabo. That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna blame John.
Quite frankly, it sounds made up. John. You know, like that's the most common name in the book. But go ahead. Okay.
Nanya, what's going on, man?
I'm glad to hop in here. I mean, it's a pretty boring summer here in football world, so it's good to always to have this to hop onto and talk some ball. Because like we were talking about before this, I mean, like no disrespect to the baseball fans, but it's a dry time right now. Outside of we got Game 7 in the Stanley Cup tonight, but summer in general is like if you're a football diehard, it's a grind for sure.
We were talking about it. Like for me personally, summer it's the worst season. I'm sorry. I know people are gonna criticize that, but like for me personally, again, work is much more busy. You guys know my job. Traffic, heat, the beach around me, not the cleanest thing in the world. You can't poop in air conditioning. I don't enjoy that. So like there's certain things I just hate the summer. Then on top of it, baseball is the only sport out there. Just brutal. So
what do you do for a living? What do you do? You're an activist, right? You're a
I'm a protester. It's hot. It's very hot. I get paid by the government to go to protest.
Yes.
Yeah, it's hot. I don't like protesting in the summer. But so we're gonna talk about some camp. Obviously, we'll throw a lot of questions and like direct it towards Sabo. But I was on last week. I apologize for it. I got just busy last week, but. Nonetheless, I do want to talk about the Rodgers thing. I know it's been a little bit obviously overplayed now. Like I'm sure people have talked about it 1,000 times. So we're not gonna harp on it for like an hour or anything like that. But Rodgers missing camp, all that stuff. Sabo, you've been there. We've seen the comments from guys like DJ Reed from Sauce Gardner. Nobody really gives a crap about it. We know why as a website, and us three know why people criticize Rodgers. It's because of his political opinions, because of the vaccination stuff. If we're just being honest, that's exactly what it is. People try to dunk on him. So you have that in conjunction with, hey, the same old Jets. So it makes it easy for people to try to kind of crap on us and get headlines because Jets fans will respond. But Sabo, would you rather have had Rodgers miss all the voluntary workouts and then just made the two mandatory and then people would be happy because that's fine? Like, hey, just miss all the voluntaries, or would you take the 10 voluntaries over those 2 mandatory camp? Because I know what you've said. I know what people say. It's like, hey, they're the same type of practices for the Jets anyway.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I'll preface it by saying it's not nothing. So it's something, and you could criticize him. That's fine, especially based on his words last year. We got to do things the right way. But if you look at it, he's been here, 14, 15 months now, and he's done he's gone above and beyond. And what people don't realize is it's wordplay. I mean, mandatory minicamp is what everyone freaks out about. But it was only 2 practices, and it was the last 2 practices before the dead period going into camp. OTAs. They went just as hard in OTAs as minicamp. It's a grouping of 2 months of practices. I was there, and minicamp was just an extension of that. So it was just basically the final 2 practices of a 2-month schedule where they were going hard. So it's completely overblown.
Yeah, and like it's just so funny that people are calling him like a bad teammate and stuff like that. It's like last year he couldn't win when he was with the team. Oh, the cameras keep panning to him. Bad teammate. He wants all the attention. When he wasn't there, it was he's not helping out Zach Wilson. Where is he? So you literally cannot win. And we know that as fans. Again, people are going to try to dunk on Aaron Rodgers, but like you said, he's been the perfect teammate. He was voted most inspirational player right last year. Obviously, he made an effect on his teammate, and then not only that, but didn't the dude also give back like $35 million? So like, what else can you really ask from the guy? So like, I know that obviously him not showing up is not necessarily ideal because we know what's going to come with the comments and stuff like that. But
yeah, with
that being said, it seemed like a thing where he planned a trip or whatever it was before the minicamp schedule came out. The mini camp schedule came out. Okay, crap. I can't make it. It is what it is. I think what really happened was the Jets more so obviously people want to attack them, but Robert Saleh didn't help out the situation, right? Like saying, hey, it's an unexcused absence. he should have, just the phrasing of it, he could have said it's an expected absence. We excused it ourselves, but technically under the CBA, it's not excused. So we have to fine him. Like if he just said something like that where we expected it, I don't think it's as big of a storyline. But Nani, what are your thoughts on the whole, and I'll throw it back to Sabo maybe if he wants to kind of wrap up a little bit. But what are your thoughts on the whole Rodgers thing? Terrible teammate, missing 2 practices. The guy is a cancer for the locker room.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, like, as people who follow the team every single day, we're aware of, like Sabo said, like he's gone above and beyond since he's been here with, being in every voluntary practice when he didn't even necessarily do that in Green Bay during his time there. Like you said, the money that he's taken off in his contract, just everything. Inviting Malachi Corley to his guest house, like those are the things that don't get covered nationally. But as soon as there's something negative, then that's when it gets blown up and the rest gets buried. So at the end of the day, it's not going to matter. Like I saw something like Julian Edelman was saying that like everyone's going to be talking about this if the Jets start 1-3. If the Jets start 1-3, we're going to be talking about the 3 games that they lost, not the 2 practices that he missed in June. So yeah, it's not nothing. You would prefer that he showed up and like found a way to be there and make sure none of this happened. But at the same time, it's a non-story to me that I don't even think we'll remember it in a year.
No,
like next year's minicamp will come here and like, oh, that minicamp thing. Like there are how many off-season dramas that we barely even remember about. Like what was last year's this time? I'm sure there was something like didn't Quinn Williams have a thing? And then now it's like you don't even remember that happened. So
contract.
This stuff it's just stuff to fill the dead time right now.
The fact that the most detrimental thing is the narrative that it's a topic as opposed to actual practice time is all you need to know.
Yeah,
that's it. I mean, the fact that that's so much bigger than he's missing practice, that's going to hurt them. That's it. That's all you need to know. That it's really, again, it's not nothing, but let the punishment fit the crime. Let the discussion and the negative words fit the experience of whatever happened. So not a big deal.
Yeah, it's funny with Edelman too. I know he was comparing his time to like with the Pats with Tom Brady, and I know that Tom Brady won a Super Bowl with the Bucs, and then he missed some practices, but didn't he miss like 11 days of training camp or whatever that was? So you have Tom Brady who does it, but when he does, it's not a big story. But when Aaron Rodgers does it because people hate him, it's a big story. And again, I know that Brady won a Super Bowl in Tampa, so he had some more leeway potentially, but still, like 11 practices versus 2. So not so crazy. Again, it's just funny the way the Jets are covered, but past that, again, I don't really want to spend too long on Aaron Rodgers and stuff like that. But another one of the storylines recently was the whole Hassan Reddick thing. Again, funny. I was on Jake's show yesterday, and we kind of talked about it. It's like you see that Hassan Reddick is in, I believe it's Tokyo, dressing up in whatever the hell that's called. I don't know if you guys are more cultured than I am. You know what that's called, but he's dressing up in some like Japanese type attire, and then people kind of try to steer it like, oh, he missed Jets camp to be in Tokyo.
Who says that?
It's like, oh, Sabo, if you see some headlines, like the way they said it, like the way they phrased it was like, oh, he missed training camp, or he missed camp, and here is where he is. It's like camp was a week ago. Like this picture came out like yesterday or 2 days ago. He could have obviously completely left after. And even if you are skipping minicamp or you're skipping camp because of a contract, who gives a crap if you're in Tokyo or if you're in New Jersey? Like, what does it matter?
I get jealous at you guys because, I'm slaving doing the website and app stuff while you guys get to watch film and do the fun stuff. And I'm thinking, point for me right now, because I'm not as plugged in to the headlines and the social media and the comments. So I can't believe that. That's mind boggling to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's certain. I can find the website, maybe send it to you, but it's just crazy how they try to kind of like phrase it. But with that being said, with the whole Hassan Reddick thing, Save, I'll throw it to you first, because there's a lot of opinions about like what they could do with Reddick, the situation. Just overall, your opinion of it. Like, did they trade for this guy knowing he wanted a new contract and they're not giving it to him? Is it a thing where I think an alternate view is like, hey, they traded for him. They traded for him knowing he needed a contract, but also with that being said, he needs to play, right? Like he's not going to not play. So at this point, did they trade They got a third round pick, or they got a third round pick, or no, a fourth round pick for Huff? What did they get for Huff? It was Or no, he just walked. He just walked.
He walked. Yeah.
He walked. So what I think is going to happen, or what could happen with Reddick is, people might think that you might extend him a year, but what happens if the Jets just figure that we got to sign all of our guys next offseason? We let him walk. We get a 4th round pick because we're assuming he's going to get some stats, and then you rented him for 1 year for a 4th round pick. Like I think that's also a possibility. So, Sabo, what do you think about the whole situation? Like trading for him, knowing he needs a contract. Are the Jets idiots? Like, what do you see happen with Reddick?
Nah, it's more in the vein of the Rodgers narrative. I mean, I believe the reports that the communication went down well initially, and maybe he's changed his stance a little bit. But at the same time, it probably was just one conversation initially when the trade happened. So one conversation is not going to put everything on the table. That's one. Number two, Douglas and the Jets aren't doing this without realizing they have the ultimate trump card, and that is the dude has to play to get paid. He is motivated by money, as many players are. He has to pay. He has to play to get paid. Bottom line. So if he's going to hold out at camp, it's not going to be good for him. Do they come together with his camp and see if he could extend him a year? Maybe, maybe not. Perfect world for me. I'd love it for him to come into the year on his last year. I kind of want to try to avoid that, and I think that's where Douglas will try to do. And I think Reddick will show up and play. I don't see it being a big topic.
And that's the thing too. Like, I know some people on Twitter and just in general have said, like, maybe the Jets throw a sweetener onto the deal, which is nice. But why? Like, why do you have to do that? In terms of, there's no reason to just throw $5 million down the drain if he has to play. So it might be nice to do that, but we're talking about a team who's cash strapped. Like, I don't know if they could just throw out money to throw out money. He has to play.
If he's 26
for that new contract.
If he's 26, sure, he's going to be 30. I mean. Yes, he's critical. Without him, I don't know what they do in base without him. It is a nightmare. Because you got JJ on one edge, and I don't want to play McDonald on the other edge starting at base. So it is a nightmare. Sub, they're a little better, but he has to play. Bottom line.
Yeah, no, Nani, and I want to ask that question. I kind of want to ask. I'll kind of throw a follow-up into that, because in terms of going forward, like, let's say it is just a situation where the Jets are going to let Reddick walk. Like you said, Sabo, like, it's a thing where he has to play this year. What about next year though? Like, that's the problem, is if you're not going to extend this guy, you went from JFM and Huff, and now you have Reddick to next year being JJ and McDonald. Like, is that enough next year?
Yeah, you got to grab a guy. And reading the tea leaves, the Tack McKinley signing, 2017 first round pick. He's scuttled around a bit. Maybe that's some insurance. Who knows if he even makes the team? It'll be uphill for him. But McGregor, the UDFA, there's going to be a lot of different guys. It'll be interesting to see Clemens. I know they love him, but do they love him more than a second teamer? They shouldn't. But we'll see.
Yeah, Donnie, what are your thoughts on the whole Reddick situation? And like, too, like, with the whole thing, like, they traded for him. It's not a thing where, hey, I'm so upset with the Eagles because I just hate the Eagles. I'm going to come to the Jets and play for the same price and be happy with it. So, he wanted a new contract. But again, it's a thing where they know he has to play. They kind of had him pinned against the wall. So I think it may look bad for optics. But if he's a 1-year rental for a top 5, the top 10 pass rusher in the league for a 4th round pick, like, I think that could be completely worth it. My thing is, like, next year, I don't have faith in Taylor or McGregor or Watts or any of these guys that Sabo is talking about, because they haven't proven anything on the field. So going into next year, you have JJ, who is a decent pass rusher. Like, that's fine. And then you have McDonald, who right now we think could be a good pass rusher, but is completely unproven. And how much can he prove this year? And I don't know, 30% of the reps, whatever he's going to get, 35% of the reps. So going into next year, like, it's sketchy that you don't have more depth at defensive end and even like high end talent. Like, you go from having a super deep defensive line to kind of thinning out. For a coach who loves defensive end, like, rotation and really emphasizes it. So thoughts on the whole Reddick thing, Dania?
Yeah, I mean, when they initially made the trade, that was my thought right off the bat, that this is a 1-year thing, because, you have a 30-year-old edge rusher who, plays a very athleticism-based game. He really relies on his speed and his bend, his ability to finish sacks. Like, that's how he makes an impact. He's not a, like, pressure rate type of guy like Bryce Huff. Like, I'm going to consistently win with technique and wreck the game. Like, sacks are what he does, and it's based on the speed and athleticism. So I don't think he has a game that will age too well into his 30s. So you get him on a contract year while he still is very good after the last couple seasons. and you get him motivated this year. You let him walk, and you get a comp pick that could make up for the pick that you used to trade for him anyway. So I think that was sort of the vision, like win now type of player who is a veteran, going to be motivated, get a comp pick to cancel out the trade. And then in the long term, yeah, you do have to make more moves. Like Robby said, hopefully McDonald can break out and become a high-level guy who can be your best edge rusher for years to come. Hopefully he can do that, but we obviously have to see it first. And then JJ, I mean, as he is right now, he's a very good player, two-way edge rusher, which is hard to find, a guy who could play at a solid level in both phases. But like you said, pass rushing, I think, isn't great yet. It's good, solid, but not great. So maybe he has another leap in him after 1 year. I don't think so, because he already was an older prospect. I feel like this is about what he's going to be, but I can't rule out that he does have another level to tap into. So maybe that happens as well, and that could curb some of the need to add more edge rush. But yeah, I do think he's going to show up and play, because he just doesn't have the leverage to not play. So maybe they put in some sort of sweetener. I know Rivka had an article suggesting that, maybe they guarantee some of it, maybe sweeten it by about $1 million, $2 million, or put in some more incentives into that deal, similar to what guys like Saquon Barkley and Josh Jacobs did when they had similar contract situations recently. So I could see something like that to, have a compromise, make him a little bit happier. But I don't see an extension being signed, and I do think he's going to show up and play at some point early in camp.
Yeah, and Rivka's asking in the comments why I like Reddick and base as opposed to McDonald. It's not like I'm in love with Reddick and base. We know what he is. He's a Pinier's, back guy and sub mainly, but yeah, he's a vet. He's not McDonald. It's a far difference between those two. I know they're similar type players, but Reddick used to be a linebacker. He's a vet. I trust him a lot more. That's not to say I'm not nervous about the run day. I am.
I gotta answer a few super chats and get through a few other chats as well before we get to our next topic. So, Hype says, Joe, you're always a headliner. I have some drops now.
We got to put it in the system. We got to put it through StreamYard now.
Now, no, you should be able to hear it. I think everybody should be able to hear it, but me. So I can't actually hear it. So I'm hoping it works.
No.
I got drops.
I can hear it. Okay, we'll talk about it. Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah. Oh, you're talking about maybe imported into StreamYard or whatever.
Yes.
I don't know
how.
Yeah,
you can do that. Yeah,
we'll do that.
Really,
brother. We'll get it going. I'm
not going to be on J. I'm not going to be
brand
on
tab on the side. You see that? There's a bunch of sound.
And Corbett wants to get more involved with the live stuff on JetX. So we're gonna, for all listening, this will be the first season where I'm truly free, not working, and not having other duties. We'll say. So we're gonna get deep with the live stuff.
Yeah, I got a little soundboard. I don't know if I'm ever have graphics like Ryan from Jets Talk has or Jake has. Maybe we will, but we got something. We'll get
it rolling.
So we appreciate Hype. We have another one from Hype here as well. Why can't we at least guarantee half of his contract and DJ's? I don't know if Reddick is in a spot where he just wants guaranteed money. I think he sees himself as he's like the 19th highest paid defensive lineman right now, and he's been top 5 in sacks the last 4 or 5 years. So he sees himself as underpaid. I don't think it's about guaranteed money. I think it's about the amount. The amount of money, and then past that, I'll throw it to Nani at first with DJ Reed. Do you think it's a possibility that we sign DJ Reed long term? Do you think it's him versus Carter? Is it possible we sign both of them? What are kind of your thoughts on the cornerback room going forward?
I don't see it happening, as much as it pains me to say, because as a player, I have nothing to complain about as far as a CB2. It's you can't ask for much more than that. But yeah, just there are so many young guys coming up that need to get paid. They've already pushed so much money back. So it's, long term, you got to think about, you got to make your list of priorities. And as much as we love Reed, he's up there in age, ceiling isn't quite as high as all these other guys who you absolutely have to keep. So, and then comparing him against Carter, I do lean towards him because he is younger. I think finding a guy who's that good in the slot is harder than getting a solid second cornerback, because I think Carter is the class of slot corners, regardless of not making all pro. He's up there. I think top 3 at worst, with the case to be the best. And that's a really difficult thing to find. And I think it's a role that's only going to continue to become more valued as teams pass the ball more, play more 11 personnel. Like we just saw it was only last year, 22, when they finally added slot as an all-pro position. So we're starting to see that increased recognition of that being like this is a starting position. It's not 2 cornerbacks, 3 linebackers anymore. So we're starting to see that, and I think more money is going to come along with that. So I think extending Carter as early as you can before we start to see that boom of like, okay, it's a 3 cornerback league, start to catch up with what's actually happening on the field. I think it's a good time to extend him now, and it's going to be a more premium position than it has been considered in the past. So I do lean towards keeping Carter. I think, unfortunately, Reed's going to walk next year.
How many snaps did Carter play last year? You're assuming like it's like 60 to 70% of the snaps?
They've been over 70. I'll pull it up right now, but
yeah, if you have the number, because then the question is like, hey, okay, even if he's the better player than Reed, is Reed, even though he's maybe a lesser of a player than Carter is, because he plays 100% of the snaps, is that the difference? So you have 100% Reed. He plays 100% of the reps, where Carter may be better, but he plays 30% less of the snaps. You see what I'm saying? So like,
it surprises me as a sidebar how stringent they are with that. I mean, when Sauce or Reed were out, they still had Carter coming in only at nickel. It was strange to me. Like Carter could play boundary. I know.
I think he did a little bit versus the Eagles. The Eagles, he played a little bit of boundary.
A little bit. It was
like
crazy
5 reps, 10 reps, maybe.
Yeah, it was crazy to me how they're so strict with that. In a situation where Reed walks, do they do it more? I mean, I could certainly see it.
Yeah. So what if you had to choose between the two, Sabo, are you going to do?
No, I agree with Nani all the way. I'd be shocked if Reed gets a deal. Shocked.
Yeah, and I get that argument, what you're saying, Joe, like in terms of the snaps, but I think what I would say is that a lot of that is run snaps, because a lot of the snaps where Carter's coming off are, when you're putting a linebacker in for him. So it's like the cornerbacks aren't really doing too much in that play anyway. That's not where they're adding their value, what you pay them for. And they do still play a lot more pass snaps. Like I just pulled it up here. Like Reed and Carter both played 15 games, snaps and coverage. Reed had 542, Carter 434. So he still played over 100 more snaps in the pass game, but the run game difference was 230 snaps, 230 more for Reed. So the snap difference is a lot more run snaps, and like we don't care about that so much for corners. So I would say it's still worth it despite less snaps.
That's a good point.
Yeah, for sure. And I think obviously slot corners are paid less because they play less. Like realistically, you play 30% less or whatever it's going to be. But to me, it's a harder position to fill. Like I think you can figure out the outside and funnel guys to the inside. Slot with a 2A go is just so freaking hard to play. And not only do you have to be able to play guys in 2A goes, hey, you also got to fill in the run game. Like it's not.
Yeah, you're a safety.
Spot.
You're a safety and run support basically. I mean,
yeah, for sure.
You really are.
Yeah, you're a strong safety. It's crazy like how much those guys are asked to do. And then, hey, on top of that, again, cover. So yeah, I value Michael Carter, and not only because I think he's a better player. I think Reed's like a solid corner too. I don't think he's number one. You saw him get beat up a little bit last year versus Dolphins and stuff like that. So where Carter
he gambles a lot.
Yeah, that and he tends to create a lot of distance at the snap too. He gets into a back pedal pretty quickly. So he's a guy who, he like plays you over the top and vertically.
There's extremes,
but he doesn't necessarily have the size. And then with that being said, like underneath, he kind of starts to get into his back pedal quickly, and then guys beat him underneath a little bit too much for my liking as well. With
I feel, to your point, I feel like he gambles a lot, but he creates too much space. There's extremes. He's never in the middle. Like he has a mindset going into it based on the coverage and what he's looking at.
Yeah, for sure. Now, is there a possibility they keep too? Like, say, you're kind of saying like, no way. Is it possible that, hey, like because we don't have the quarterback, we move some money around? Some guys, Sauce's big hits in 2025 and Carter's in 26. Like, do you really see it as like there's probably no way this happens?
No, you know what? In terms of cap, Nania and Rivka will know more than me. So Rivka comment. I would say there's a chance based on what I know with the numbers, but just knowing the situation and what Douglas likes to do, I'd be shocked. His age, the situation, they have Sauce already. So it's even, I don't want to say easier, but it's not as dire to worry about the CB2 when you have a guy like Sauce as CB1. So I'd be shocked. in that
I think the fact that he was already talking about it in past tense, like when he was asked about it at mini camp or whatever, like he was saying like, I've enjoyed my time here. I expect to have my contract run out. Like that kind of was the answer to me.
They probably communicated to him already. Honestly, I mean, it would make sense if they have. Not that, you know, you're not going to this year last year. You know, we'd like to keep you, but hey, nothing's going to happen until next offseason.
Yeah. Now, next super chat from Hype. There we go. Irv Charles got a lot of spotlight, I guess. How was he in camp? Obviously, Sabo question that I cannot answer and only you can answer.
A lot of spotlight in terms of offense.
I guess so. I honestly didn't hear much about Irv Charles, but what are your thoughts on him? And we'll kind of turn that into a receiver discussion after.
Okay, yeah, I wouldn't go too crazy with Irv Charles on offense. You know, you could see, and when these things get reported at practice, every snap's not even. You know, whether it's teams or 7-on-7, you could clearly see what the coaching staff is trying to do in certain situations. Okay, like this team session is going to be offensive driven. We're working on this. This defensive or this session is going to be defensive driven. We're sending 5 or more on every play and the offense. So there's clear intentions, and that's the same thing when it comes to personnel and rotation. And Irv Charles is not really in the plans in terms of offense. He is a clear second teamer in terms of offense receiver. Clear Brant Boyer camp guy, special teamer, a lock to make the roster as a special teamer, but I wouldn't go too crazy on offense with Irv.
Now I know people wanted to hang you on Twitter, Sabo, for saying that Gibson is the 3.
People
right
go nuts.
Over...
I saw a couple things, but yeah, I mean, it just goes to show you how many nutty people there are on Twitter.
Well, those same people forget that, you know, Bryce Hall was above Sauce and Tippmann was the third string center. Like it stuff happens, especially in camp. Like you're not going to necessarily just elevate Corley to number 3 here. But thoughts on Gibson, then past that, like kind of tying into Irv Charles as well. If you have Gibson as the 3, we're assuming Corley is going to be active on game days. Like even if he's not the 3 or the 4, he's going to get plenty of design touches.
Corley still has a shot to get it, figure it out, mesh with Rodgers, and still be that 3 on by the time week 1 comes. I never rule that out. It's just positive news. It's the fact that Gibson has taken a leap, and we know who he is body wise. We know his catch radius. He's not really a deep threat. I mean, he's shifty. He's got the hips. But what's so encouraging is that he has figured it out with Rodgers in a way that I did not expect in terms of his second year in the league. And that goes to show you the practice time with Rodgers being there and being all in. And that's what opened my eyes. It's not fantasy. We could just plug a guy in and say, okay, go play offense. No, these receivers have to be in tune with the quarterback and the scheme. And Corley's not there yet. He's a rookie. It's expected. Yeah. That's the way it goes, guys. And Mike Williams isn't there yet either. He's obviously the 2 once healthy. So right now, to me, Gibson's the 3. Lazard's 4, Corley's 5, and that is right now going into camp. I wouldn't be shocked if it's Mike Williams, Garrett Wilson, and Gibson in 11 personnel week 1. I wouldn't be shocked if it's Lazard, Mike Williams, Garrett Wilson. But by the time the year is over or midway through the year, I think Corley's going to be 3 for sure. And even if he's not in 11 personnel to start, he's going to get his touches. They're going to have packages for him, no doubt.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I think like you can have Gibson as the 3, but obviously you're going to still give Corley the end arounds and the jet sweeps and the design touches, so he's going to be involved. Yeah, Gibson as the 3 or even the 4, let's say. You know, it seems like he's obviously going to be involved in the offense, which is positive because you didn't really see a lot, or I didn't really see a lot from him last year. But if he's improving, he's a second-year player. Like it's obviously possible. So you have those top 4. Yeah,
finding those soft spots in the zone, seeing, and listen, you don't have the benefit of replay during camp. You have to be locked in on a certain spot when you're watching these plays and these reps unfold. Against zone, finding those spots is what you look for. And he is really doing it, and his timing with Rodgers is there. So much so that it's like 500% better than Lazard. And that really shouldn't be the case based on their history. So much so that it competes with Garrett Wilson. And I'm not comparing the talent, obviously, but I'm talking about timing and feel of the offense and fitting in. So it's tremendous news. No one expected, I didn't expect Gibson to look this good in terms of being in sync with the offense and Rodgers, and he is. So that's just add one more potential target to the mix.
Yeah. Now, with that being said, okay, so if we have Gibson in the top 4, let's assume Mike Williams is healthy for the start of the season and he's going to be ready. Yeah. You have Corley who's going to be involved. Irv Charles is a guy who's probably going to replace Hardy as like that special teams demon. Another situation where and this is something I saw on the stream yesterday with you and Rivka. It's like, Lazard could be a 300-yard guy. Why are we complaining? It's like, he's a 300-yard guy at $11 million is a lot different than a 300-yard guy at $3 million. So yeah, it's a big deal when you're getting jack shit of a guy you paid $11 million. So let's not be crazy and say, oh, we don't care about that. So if you have those guys in terms of, again, Gibson, Corley, and Charles being active on game day, is it a situation where you maybe see that, or where you maybe see Lazard inactive on game days again?
It's possible. I mean, first we got to see if all of them get through healthy. But I think it'll mainly come down to Brownlee. How does Brownlee impress this summer? Because I know they really like him, but it'll come down to Brownlee, maybe Izzy too. A lot goes into it. The tight ends. So I think there's a chance, sure. And you're right. In terms of talent, Lazard as a 5 is nice in terms of talent. Yeah. But this is a hard cap world, and that really matters, the money.
Nani, I'm going to throw that to you. I'm going to be listening. I'm going to jump off the screen for a second, but I'll be listening. But are your thoughts about Lazard and the rest of the receiver position as well, and what you heard of in camp?
Oh, yeah. I mean, like Robby said, I think the Gibson thing should be viewed as a positive more than anything. Just the fact that there is someone else stepping up in this room to add some competition, be a potentially good depth piece, especially in that slot role where they need that help the most, because you have Garrett Wilson and Garrett Wilson probably will be in that role a lot too, but you have Garrett Wilson and Mike Williams on the outside. So to, have someone to push Corley in case he's not ready, to push Lazard in case he can't bounce back from last year, I think is a good thing. And, like Robby said, I think Corley is going to eventually have a chance to get into that role.
Could we lock him out? Oh, damn it.
Nope. I'm back. Here we are. I had to attend to the dad duty really quickly, but it's a thing where, again, Lazard for 11, and it seems like Saleh said it last year. Like he was talking in terms of like, hey, Lazard's going to be here for next year, and like that's about it. Kind of seemingly like cannot wait until this guy's off the books. But the thing where, again, I saw that comment yesterday, like, oh, if we get 300 yards out of him, like great. You're not paying $11 million for 300 yards, and I don't think he's going to get that, because unless Mike Williams isn't healthy, where's his role in the offense?
Yeah, especially if you're considering insurance.
Yeah, so insurance, like inactive on game day, and that's all he is. Like potentially, what a bust of a signing.
I mean, the thing he has going for him is that fuel with Rodgers, and that does matter. It does in terms of timing and all that good stuff. So he does have a really positive thing going for him, but we'll see. I don't know.
I'll throw this question to you too, just because it's about the receiver position, and we'll go through the chat a little bit, and then we'll transition to some other stuff from camp. But is Brownlee doing good? I know Gibson is going up on the depth chart. We already hit on Gibson, but what have you seen from Brownlee, if anything?
Not much, to be honest. I'm trying to remember. I mean, specific plays, nothing that stands out or jumps out, to be honest. Yeah, and not much from the other guys either. McCutcheon. Who's the other guy, the vet they have? Taylor?
Malik Taylor, same guy last year, made that big catch in preseason.
Yeah. Haven't seen much from him either. El Zayat. I mean, El Zayat made a couple plays, but he's not going to make the team, obviously. So not much. Gibson and Garrett Wilson. Obviously, Garrett Wilson goes without saying.
Yeah, for sure. Not to say this is a mindset, but is a very, very deep edge class in 2025. I know, but then you're also taking, like, hey, Reddick is going to be a guy who is going to get you top 10 in sacks. He's going to get you 10, 11, 12, 13 sacks, wherever it's going to be. Do we want to depend on a rookie to like really fill that role, fill like another important role in the defense? I don't know. I don't know if JJ, a rookie, and McDonald's even necessarily enough for me. Like, I think you can get by with it, but it's not ideal, because what if the rookie busts? Like that happens.
What about run D, Blewett? 1 to 10 being the most nervous. How do you feel about the run D?
I'm nervous. Yeah. So I'm nervous. Now the thing is, like, hey, the Jets should be getting passed on more because hopefully the Jets are actually scoring points and teams can't just consistently run the ball down their throats. So I think it's maybe a little bit.
It works
less,
both ways, but
yeah, maybe a little bit less important. But I've been pretty open in my opinions of their defensive line and what they've done this offseason. To me, and I know people are going to say, "Oh, well, you'll never." And I always preface it by like this because people will. I already know like the YouTube comments. I can tell you that I do not know if Kinlaw or Leaky Fotu are going to be better than Woods and Jefferson. What I could tell you is I liked Quentin Jefferson's film with the Seahawks before coming to the Jets a lot more than I like Kinlaw's. Okay. I can tell you that I liked Al Woods' film with the Seattle Seahawks before coming to the Jets a lot more than I like Leaky Fotu's. So I think they've downgraded in that sense. Now, I heard you talk about it yesterday a little bit, Sabo, in terms of like them getting pushed around a little bit. And Quentin Jefferson is a guy who definitely gets pushed around. Kinlaw is more of like a physical freak who you're not going to be able to push around, but he's just lacking like technique wise. So maybe they kind of upgraded in physicality from Jefferson to Kinlaw.
I mean, that was a clear goal of theirs this offseason. You could see it in the trenches on both sides. Offensively, I feel good. Defensively, I haven't seen your reviews on Leaky or Kinlaw. I have the Cliff Notes. Philosophy wise, I start there because before the Al Wood signing last year, they really never brought in a two-gapper, a potential 3 or 4 two-gapper type guy. Al Woods, I felt like, was the first guy. They really did. And whether it worked out or didn't, it signaled something to me that they recognize that they can't play the same way on every down. And that's my big gripe with the run D. They're just so downhill and so freaking aggressive and not attuned to the situation. You know, maybe if they don't get pushed around as much, it won't matter. But what is it with Leaky? Does he have a quick get off? I mean, is there anything that shows you that makes you think he could fit this system where in terms of what they're seeing with him?
Yeah, like I said in the review, I think he has some explosion that wasn't necessarily like taken advantage of because he was two gapping a lot and stuff like that. So I think he's more explosive than Woods and he offers more in terms of like athletic upside and he can penetrate better than Woods. But at the same point, like who's going to hold up in the run game on the interior there? Because he has the ability to, in my opinion, but he can get moved, and it's more so because of poor technique, and he plays really high at times. And he doesn't really know how to like turn into a double team and anchor down. But I'm still so I think he offers more athletic upside as a pass rusher and stuff like that. But if you're going to one gap him and all that stuff, like who's stopping the run? So
I mean, that's what they do. I mean, that's what they do basically. So I'm nervous. I'm right there with you. I'm really nervous because 2 years ago we saw that their run D got, and even last year the run D wasn't that good. Based on situation, when you can guess run on the majority of plays based on game flow and circumstance, you know, the opposition's laughing at Zach Wilson and the offense and saying, we don't need to score points. You just run your run D is going to look a little better than it actually is. So, and it works both ways. Like you said, if you have a better offense, you're going to be put in better situations. I'm nervous.
Yeah. So, actually, Nani, well, I'll throw it to you. I know we've already kind of discussed this, I believe, on our last podcast that we did like a month ago. So nothing really changed on the defensive line. But anything to add to that?
No, I agree. I'm concerned about it, but I would say I don't think my concern affects my overall outlook of the team because kind of like you said, Blue, and I did an article that kind of touched on some of these numbers recently, but it's going to be less of an issue because they're not going to have the worst offense in the league. So, you know, they're going to be in more situations where the other team is in obvious pass situations at the end of the game versus, you know, last year the run defense was more in the spotlight because they were getting run on the whole game. They had their opponents only passed 52% of the time last year, which was third lowest in the league. So it was almost 50-50 throughout the game. And in fourth quarters, that went down to 42%. So almost 3 out of every 5 plays were runs in the fourth quarter. So I think this year that's going to kind of flip around. Like you look at some of the top teams last year, they're over 65, 70% in the fourth quarter of pass plays. So I think we're going to get closer to that range. So I don't think it's going to matter as much in close situations because it's going to be a good offensive team. So they're going to have more opportunities to force teams to pass. But at the same time, like Robby said, like there is a counter to that, to where, you know, their run defense hasn't been exposed as much because like half the game they're just running the clock out. So
I expect
think
the yards per carry to go up, but that should be expected. And that should be a good thing at the end of the day, especially because I think the strength of the D is the secondary and the coverage. And if you're winning in games, that's going to be highlighted. So yards per carry should go up, but that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, and it's good you brought that up because I just pulled this up because I was curious, but there were great teams last year who were near the top of the most yards per carry allowed. Kansas City, 8th most, 4.5. Baltimore was 7th worst, 4.5. Buffalo,
based on game
5th
situation.
worst,
Yeah,
4.6. So that's going to happen. You're going to yield some big runs because you're playing pass, and they can pull out some surprise runs on you. Especially, you pull out a draw on this aggressive Jets defense, catch them, rushing up the field, get a 10-yard chunk. Stuff like that's going to happen. I think this is going to be an average, below average defense and run defense and whatever stats you're looking at. But the pass defense has a chance to be even better than it has been because you're going to get these chances to tee off now that you weren't getting the past few years.
Right.
Hype is throwing in a lot of $2 super chats. We're gonna keep hitting them before I get to the rest of the stuff. But Joe, can you do Gibson film? I don't see him listed. I was just talking about it. I think I did 32 of the Jets, like 53 players. Can I throw in Gibson? Maybe we'll see. But I don't think
get back to work.
How many reps did he play last year, Nani? I don't even know. Like when I was watching, I don't think there was a lot to really break down in terms of what
I think the reps were there
later in the season.
Like getting targeted, very few, but I think he ended up playing like half the snaps on the year.
That could be like one where I do it and it's pretty quick because he's not really targeted a lot. I don't know. Maybe hype. Maybe I don't know. It takes some convincing. I just finished a Conklin review, which means I'm finished with all of them. I was gonna take like a month off, so we'll see. It might be there. Another one from hype. Wilson is 6 foot. Corley is 5'11". Why can't he play outside? I guess that's directed towards Sabo. I don't know if that's directed towards Sabo or not, but
they will. I mean, when someone says, okay, you have your 3 starters, Garrett Wilson, Mike Williams, and Corley, say, and Garrett Wilson is the slot. That's not saying Garrett Wilson's going to play slot every play. That's not this world. That's not football. That's not offense in today's game. Garrett Wilson will be lined up outside. No question about it. It's just that I tag him as the slot because he's the top slot guy and the go-to money guy with Rodgers when it's nut crunching time. That's all I mean by that.
Yeah, for sure. Another one from hype. My 4th yearly renewal is 7/22. Really love you guys, which is wild because we started. Well, you guys started it in 2020, so it's already been in 4 years, which is crazy. And I think it started in like April, right? It was like April. So
March or April. I think it was April. You're right.
So it was April. It'll be the fifth season of Jets X Factor.
And Hype's been here for
COVID.
All of them.
Listen, initially we were going to be.
We appreciate that. Thank you. That's awesome to hear.
Yeah, thank you. Initially we were going to be 100% premium, so every piece of content behind the paywall. But COVID kind of adjusted things, and we're going to be doing a lot more paywalled content, premium content moving forward. And we still got great stuff. Obviously, Blewett and Nania and me occasionally, but a lot more good stuff is coming this year.
I'm trying to get to the rest of the chat and see if I see any questions or anything we want to. Lazard is as good as Rodgers wants him to be. It's just a thing where I don't think he's gonna be active. Like if everybody else is healthy and Gibson's playing as well as Robby thinks he is, and he continues that and carries it into the season, where's his spot on the roster? Especially if Mike Williams is healthy, or at least where's his spot on the active game day roster? I should say. I get it. He's on the roster because like Rivka and Nania have said, like if you get rid of him, you actually lose money. So there's no way he's gonna be off the team this year. It doesn't make sense financially.
I think he's Mike Williams number 2. He's insurance policy for Mike Williams injury.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so past that, well, I guess we'll go to the running back group. It's another thing in training camp that we discussed, or that's been discussed a lot in terms of like some of the guys behind Breece Hall. Sabo, obviously, you could talk about Allen and Davis. I know they've both been impressive, but then past that, running back 4, Cohen, Valladay. Who are we seeing there? Who do you think's running back 4? Obviously, you have Izzy too. So
I saw some of your Twitter all 22s with Davis, especially the pass pro.
Mm-hmm.
I did not expect Allen and Davis to be so good coming out of the backfield. I did not expect that. I mean, we know that they're power guys. They hit the hole hard, which is very tough to find, especially youth football, high school. NFL's a different animal, obviously, but there's a difference between a guy who hits the hole really hard in the NFL and kind of dances. These guys are no nonsense. They get right downhill, but out of the backfield, man, I didn't see one, running back type drop from these guys. They run routes. Braylon Allen high pointed one on the sideline from Tyrod Taylor that was underthrown. At one point, I think against a linebacker, it must have been a wheel. I wasn't looking at him at the start, but 40 yards downfield, these guys could catch the ball to the backfield, which was really the highlight for me.
Yeah, Allen has a good ability to run routes and catch the ball. There was definitely a few balls I saw him catch at Wisconsin that were outside of his frame that he was able to bring in. And then Davis too, like he wasn't asked to do it a lot. What school? It was like South Dakota. Is like South Dakota State, right? I think that's his school.
Yeah.
All I know is Jackrabbits. That's all I know.
Yeah, he wasn't asked to do it a lot, but when I saw him run routes, I think I saw him run an angle route or two. They were pretty good. Like he ran them relatively well. So I think both of these guys, they have some potential. But then past that, I know a lot of people are kind of like worried about Izzy and, oh my God, a bust of a pick. It's a 5th round pick. Like it's not a big deal. The hit rate's probably what, 15-20% on a 5th round pick, even make the roster after a year or two. So it's not like a big blunder on Joe Douglas's ledger there, but. Do you think Izzy's out? Do you think it's like a guy like Cohen or something like that for special teams? Or
if I had to choose one or the other,
awesome.
What happened?
That block we just saw was awesome.
I missed it. I turned it off.
I don't know. I don't know if I could. Here we go. This one here. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
Love that.
Gun to my head, I'm taking Cohen over Izzy right now. I think that's where they are as well. You don't bring a guy back after how many years has he been off? 3? 2, 3?
2020 I think was his last year, so it's been like almost 4 seasons.
That's insane. So you don't bring a guy back like that just to fool around. I mean, and I know he's not a lock to make the roster, but he looks good enough to where I think he has the edge over Izzy. Valladay gets tossed in with the first team at times. I've seen him start out as the running back in teams in 7-on-7. So I think they're trying to squeeze him into certain situations to see what they have. I don't think he's going to make the roster, but they have depth, which is a good thing. And, with running back, usually a guy will get injured in the summer, but I think they'll be okay. I think they have enough bodies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, say Nania, what do you? I obviously haven't been there and stuff like that, so you can't necessarily attest to like, hey, this guy has looked impressive or anything like that. But running back 4, big deal if he loses Izzy. Do you think it's a guy like Cohen? I don't know if it's ever been done where guys really come back even after 2 years, but 4 years is a ridiculous.
It's hard after 1 year to come back.
Yeah. Well, look at Le'Veon Bell. Even though that was a really dumb signing by us, it's like, hey, we have a super patient running back who's running behind the worst offensive line in the league. It just never made sense. But
a new offensive line too. Like they were, they had some two or three new guys, I think, that first year. But
Ryan Khalil coming in training camp. That was hilarious. I mean, I don't know if I see Cohen making it just because of what we're saying. Like that is. He hasn't played since 2020. I think he's had ACL and Achilles injuries. Especially for a guy who's like a 5'6" guy whose entire game is just breakaway speed. I don't know what he has left. I mean, from what you saw when he was touching the ball, do you feel like he had some of that juice left?
Yes. I know he looked solid. He looked solid, and him without any other situation, percentage of him making the team, I don't put it very high, but. If you keep 4 backs, I think he's number 4 right now, is my point. But what's going against him right now is Davis and Allen look good out of the backfield. And I think Cohen, other than kick return, which I don't know what they're thinking right now. I think they're still tinkering like the rest of the league. They're trying to figure out what to do. Without kick return, it's going to be tough for him, but he does catch the ball out of the back. He's a hell of a receiver out of the backfield. That's the one good thing. But do they need it is the question.
Yeah, I mean, when he was playing, it was more receiving than rushing with him. He had more receiving yards than he had rushing. So that would be a roadblock for him if those two guys are as good as we hope they are in that facet, which it looks like that they can be. But I really like these 2 picks at running back. I mean, it's hard to say that both are going to be great because it would be, it would be historic. Like if, Douglas can get Breece Hall and then select 2 more guys who are also hits, it would be a very high success rate. So most likely, 2 late round guys probably one is not going to work out, but they both look impressive to me, especially just fitting the mentality that it seems like they're trying to establish with physical running. And then I like Davis, his vision and his cutting ability as well on top of that. So I think it could be a really good backfield. And I like the idea of staying young in the backfield, because running back more than any other position, it's like guys peak immediately and then they're washed up by 26, 27. So I like
is
the idea
everyone
of
ready for
loading
the
up on
Brees
that.
Hall? Is everyone ready for the Brees Hall conversation, staying with the Jets, or no? Not yet.
I'm what do you think? He's added the big four. He's not going to be. He's going to be the one that doesn't stick around because running backs are not.
Just trying to stir up some controversy. That's all I'm doing right now.
It's a thing where, like, if you're one of the top running backs, it could be worth it. Like if you were like Nick Chubb in his prime, or Alvin Kamara in his prime, or McCaffrey obviously got paid a crap ton of money. But like, is it a thing where if they're that good and they're that much of a difference maker? Because like let's be real here. Like Brees Hall, when he's been on the field the last couple of years, has been the one to really carry the offense. So is it a thing where maybe he does get re-signed by the Jets? Because like obviously you're going to choose Sauce, right? Sauce is the number one in terms of paying those guys. Garrett Wilson would be my number two. And I think there's a conversation, JJ versus Brees Hall. I think JJ is a really good player, but do I think he's like irreplaceable? No, not necessarily. But Sabo, are you leaning towards like, hey, this is probably going to be a guy that we're not able to keep?
No, not leaning towards that at all. I'm just trying to stir some shit up. Second round pick, no option. So it's a convo Jets fans want nothing to do with right now. Yet he only has 2 years left, and he's a running back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, sorry. I want to move to the tight end position too, because this is something else I saw from you, Sabo, that hey, Yabo was playing well, and I think you got criticized a little bit for that too, which is like crazy because Yabo was actually relatively solid last year at the end of the year. With blocking as well, and then I guess he's shown a little bit in the passing game in training camp or in mini camp. Is that something that you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, Yabo and Ruckert took their turns, having their days, and the tight end group. Listen, it's a balanced group. They don't have any vertical threats. Is that by design? Partly, maybe, because I think they're going to really run the hell out of the ball this year, and I don't think people are talking about it. So do you feel comfortable with a group of Conklin, Ruckert, Yeboah, and then Bowden at fullback? Maybe. I mean, if Rodgers is your quarterback and your line's solid, I'm okay with that. But Yeboah could be, if he keeps going on this trajectory, he could be the tight end 2 in pass situations. I still think Ruckert's the tight end 2. 12 personnel, the balance looks, he's going to H-back if you need to throw a guy in there for Bowden or do anything fancy back there, misdirection. But Yeboah he impressed me in OTAs in terms of seams and anything vertical. Yeah, okay.
And like, I know Kuntz is a 7th round draft pick of the Jets, and some people have high expectations for him. But like going back
that's
to
what
his
it was.
college
I was
film,
thinking, I was like, what do you mean people criticize? Because they want Kuntz to be above Yeboah. That's what it is, folks. 7th round pick versus UDFA, not much difference.
Literally the only thing and the only reason that people love the pick is because they typed in the RAS score, and the RAS score was like 999 or whatever it was. So like automatically he's a great player, which should indicate to you like, hey, obviously the fact that he's a freak and he still got drafted in the 7th round means that the film is severely lacking, and his film was gross. Like,
and he's already had 2 or 3 horrendous drops this spring. Also,
okay.
He's got to catch the ball. If he catches the ball, he could be excellent, but he's not catching the ball in traffic.
Yeah, no, he was terrible at that in college. Now, the thing that people, I think, kind of which steered them to be like, hey, what the hell, Yeboah over a guy like Kuntz is the fact that you heard. I think somebody, I don't know what report it was, but it's saying that Rodgers and Kuntz were really kind of linking up in the offseason and we're torching the D when Rodgers was working against them in practice last year. So I think that's part of the reason that people expect a lot from Kuntz. So I can tell you, unless he made severe leaps in terms of route running, blocking, catching the ball, I don't see it. And Sabo said he's already had a few brutal drops, so I don't know exactly how that's gonna work out. But then past that, I guess we can. I don't really think there's anything else from we have tight end, running back, quarterback. Yeah, I know you said that you've seen Tyrod. You haven't been like overly impressed, right? Like he's a guy who
Tyrod
is super conservative. He's super conservative. He does have a really really nice deep ball, like that's
He
for
does.
sure. But in terms of backups, still like it's crazy. Yeah, not the most impressive in camp, but in terms of players on the Jets team or like quarterbacks we've had, he'd be the best quarterback we've had minus Rodgers since Brett Favre, right? Like I would take 2015 Tyrod over Ryan Fitzpatrick 2015. I think he's a better quarterback. So it's just crazy that like our backup now would be one of the better guys we've had in the last 2 decades, which is just kind of talking about the state of how poorly the Jets have, been, how poor the Jets have been at quarterback position. So
I think Tyrod is it's calculated to be conservative in nature because when you're a backup and that's your role, you embrace it and you don't make mistakes. You don't force the issue. You learn the offense. And I think that carries over into practice sometimes where you don't want to see that. You don't want to see a wasted rep. You want to see him, trust his read and go. You don't want to see him throw it, 5 feet wide at the back shoulder on a fade. Some of that stuff. But he does have a good deep ball. I trust him as a backup. But I think some of that conservative stuff is just him understanding his role, and that'll be okay. I mean, nothing alarming there.
Yeah, none of you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I just would say that I like the idea of having like a safe, conservative-minded backup because on a team like this, I think that's the style you're looking for because you can win games on the strength of your defense with this team. I mean, we talked about it, an endless number of times, but how many games the Jets could have won if they scored 1 touchdown on offense or just didn't turn the ball over and create defensive touchdowns. So I think, if you're a team that maybe isn't great defensively and you have a lot of offensive talent, maybe you prefer a backup who is like a Fitzpatrick type and will take a lot of chances and, play high risk, high reward football. And hopefully he gets hot and you have a run. I think there are some teams where you would maybe prefer that style, but on this team, like with what you hope is a good offensive line, good run game, great defense. The main thing I would say is just stay on schedule and don't give the ball away and, miss easy throws, things like that. So I think the safe nature of his play is the ideal backup style for this particular team, in my opinion.
Yeah, with a really pretty deep ball though too. Like that's part of his game. As well,
he picks the spots to do that.
He gets air under it.
You get that explosion, and he still has some mobility too. Like you showed in your film review, there were some very very agile plays from him in terms of creating on broken down plays.
Like this one's a dot. I remember this one. This one's a really good throw on the run. So he definitely has some ability. It's like, and realistically, I don't think I'm being a crazy Jets fan here, but we have Tyrod last year, assuming somewhat level of health, and obviously with the Jets offensive line, maybe he wouldn't have been healthy for all of these games. But we win the Falcons game, you win the Raiders game, you win the first Pats game with Tyrod last year, and you're a 10-win team.
Yeah, and he's learning a new system too. I mean, let's not forget about that. So if he's wasting reps a little too much, being a little too conservative in practice, he's learning a new system. So don't take that reporting as anything that's an emergency red level type thing.
Yeah, no, for sure. Now this hopefully let's just hope he doesn't have to play. Like I'm not even gonna get into that. Rivka said that she was pounding the door for Taylor after covering him with the Giants last year. He would made that competent or complete train like of an offense look semi-competent. Didn't he go like, I don't know his like the amount of games he won, but he was still solid with the Giants last year. And like Rivka said, like who did they have? They had Darren Waller. Okay, he's obviously a pretty solid player and he's retired now. But past that, who did they have at receiver? Sterling Shepard, Jalen Hyatt. I don't even know if I can name any more. Isaiah Hodgins, but I can't name any more past that. And even if
Wandale
Robinson from Kentucky, right?
Yeah, I don't know where Wandale's from, but yeah, Wandale.
I think it was Kentucky.
Yeah, the only thing I remember from him last year was when Dayball undressed him on that national televised game where what was the situation? They were in the red zone at the end of the first half, and he what the hell happened? Anyone remember in the comments when Dayball was losing his mind on him and they didn't get points out of it? I think.
I do not remember. Yeah, I don't remember. But something else I want to ask you about too, actually, was a linebacker spot too, or something else. I just said I want to ask you something else too about the linebacker spot too. But nonetheless, poor English. Backup, Sherwood, Barnes, Chaz Surratt, how has that been playing out with the second team? Is it Sherwood and Barnes right now? Is it Sherwood and Surratt? Because I know it's a spot where the Jets kept 4 at the beginning of last year, right? And then went to 5. So if there was to be only 4, do you think a guy like Barnes is ahead of a guy like Sherwood or Surratt? I think Sherwood is supplanted as a 3. His film was actually pretty solid last year for me in limited reps. But in terms of linebacker 4, who do you think that would be?
I think Sherwood, I agree with you. Sherwood's he's a classroom guy. I mean, he gets it. And he's probably still the backup Mike, if Mosley were to ever go out. So Sherwood 3, I would give Surratt the nod at 4. Boyer loves him. I know Zaire Barnes played some special teams. Aguovian too. Is Aguovian still on the team? I think he is, right?
Sam Govian or whatever.
Yeah. He played some special teams last year too. So I'd say Surratt is 4 and Barnes is 5 and Aguovian 6.
Okay. And then I guess the last question in terms of training camp that I can ask here, Sabo, is about the depth at corner and safety. Like, how do you see that playing out? Because you got JBC, you have Ashton Davis, you have Isaiah Oliver, who in my opinion is like safety 4 and corner like 5, most likely. Unless, I think Eccles is corner 4, in my opinion. He's been pretty good in limited reps. So
let me ask you this. When you look at the safeties and Tony Adams, how do you see it? Because I see it in a strange hybrid type way, because Tony Adams, they love him a lot. He could play man coverage. So in a lot of ways, even though he's listed as the free safety, he plays strong because he bumps down, man coverage, run support. And that's why we saw Whitehead as the solo high a lot last year. So is that the way you see it, kind of, with both safeties not having specific strong and free responsibilities? And if that's the case where Adams bumps down a lot, do you trust Chuck Clark in that high spot?
Yeah, if anything, you definitely want Clark like low, in my opinion. Like even in like a linebacker role, like if it's going to be like a big nickel type of deal, and you're going to put him like a linebacker role, in some situations, I think that's his best fit. But it's a thing where if you do that, then you can't necessarily have Tony Adams in the box and playing man coverage on because like there was times last year he lined up against like starting level receivers, like number 1s. And sometimes it doesn't always go well, but like he has the ability to play, man coverage against really anybody. I think Clark can play man coverage against like tight ends and things like that, but you start asking him to play man coverage against, slot receivers and stuff like that, I don't think it's going to work out well. So you may be forced to play him high. But if he has to play high in like a cover 6, or even like, let's say it is a quarters, and you have to, high in cover 6 in terms of being like the cover 2 side, deep half side. And then, but if you're going to ask him to play like quarters and you get lined up against like a slot receiver, I'm a little bit worried if that's how Clark's going to be used. So if they were planning on using Tony Adams in the box more, then I would maybe want another coverage guy. But if it's a situation where, hey, let's say, Clark is in the box and they're playing like a 3 or a 6 and, Tony Adams has that deep half, I feel much more comfortable with them. So I think it's dependent on matchup. Like if you're going to put Tony Adams in the box, then have it be versus that slot receiver. But if you can get away with putting Clark in the box versus a tight end and then having Tony Adams high, that's preferred. So I think it kind of depends on the matchup.
Could we see, Nadia, does PFF have it where we could see where Adams and Whitehead were lined up last year in terms of snaps, high in box, or
I mean,
man on man and high?
They have a few different designations. So I'll tell you what they have. Yeah, so for Whitehead, they have him so their alignments, they have box, free safety, which I think is technically just anytime they're deep, even if it's like too high, and slot. So for Whitehead, they have 326 box, 507 free safety, 218 slot. So basically half deep. And then for Adams, it's 273 box, 366 free safety, 220 slot. So he was a lot more balanced than Whitehead, actually.
And of the 2 safeties, this is where I keep bringing this up. Of the 2 safeties, even if Adams is listed as the free safety, he's really not, because their defense is in a lot of ways predicated around his ceiling of moving around and playing man. So what kind of other safety do you want next to him? A traditional free safety, more of a box guy? And last year, I feel like, Whitehead, you don't really want him high, yet he was high a lot. And we saw it against Buffalo the first week with those 3 picks.
Yeah.
So I prefaced the question about Oliver around that because I think they think of Oliver as the number 2 to Adams.
Gotcha.
Right? Corner, could play man, is that replacement for Adams. And then Davis is behind Clark. Whether you want to call Oliver or Eccles the 4, it doesn't matter because I think Eccles will be the backup boundary and Oliver the backup slot.
Okay. Perfect. Unfortunately, I gotta cut this a little bit shorter than I necessarily wanted to because I got some dad duty things to attest to. So I've been looking at my phone and texting. I'm trying to walk his grandma.
What time do you got?
Like now. I gotta cut it. Yeah. I gotta cut it like now.
Okay.
Just unforeseen things going on in dad duties here. But
it's all good. We'll hop on again soon.
Yeah. Sabo, any last words for the chat? Well, Sabo is hopefully committed once a month, so Sabo will definitely be back on in about a month from now. I got Nania next week, so Sabo, any last words for the chat here?
No, we'll do. When does camp start? July 22nd, July 20th, around there. So we'll do one right when camp starts.
Perfect. Nania, any last words? Any articles? Anything to look out for?
I got nothing. Let's go Jets, people.
Oh yeah. By the way, Sabo, before I end it, you are saying I've not like blown up your spot on these streams, but I have told people like you don't understand how much Sabo does behind the scenes in terms of like all this iOS stuff, Google, Apple News. Like, it's such a pain in the ass, all the stuff you deal with. So I know you're trying to wrap up that stuff soon. You'll be more on the forefront of content. So when that does happen, obviously, Wayne's gonna get more involved in the streams and all that type of stuff. But anything that people should be looking out for from you soon, or when should they be expecting to see like a Sabo breakdown? Because I feel like with like you and I, at least, you're more scheme type stuff.
Yes,
I'm more like individual player evaluation.
You're so good. You're so good with the technicalities and the terms and scouting one-on-one, focusing on one person, that I try to go with scheme and team stuff, and which is close to my heart as a coach.
It works well for sure in terms of the film stuff. Yeah.
Yes. So soon, folks. I got a little more work to do. The new JetX mobile version is out on iTunes now. Not iTunes, the App Store. It's live, so check it out if you have Apple. Android, it's already been out. Just got to clean it up a little bit. But in a couple weeks, I'll be back in full force.
Perfect. All right. I appreciate both of you guys, and we'll talk to everybody soon.